gonna.
I don't know. I do have enough information to go back with you.
What I would suggest is that we at least mention it and that we're working on it, so that the troops out there. Stall.
Yeah, but then are we opening?
Tell the chiefs to tell their people.
Okay, you tell.
Yep. And I'll make sure that
Yep, yep.
and I already have.
Okay,
So
good.
I've talked
But
to all
I
of them.
just,
Yep.
So do I wanna bring it up or not?
no.
Okay, they need to, I have numbers for you.
Are you gonna have, you want another meeting before next council
Your
meeting?
mics are on.
We're hot. How's the
All
TV
meetings
going?
are
Is it
set
good?
date.
It's on.
We live?
We are live.
We're live.
All right, everyone get ready for your close-up. We're live. The hour being 7 p.m. on Monday, February 12th, 2024. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting. Before we go any further, though, I'd ask everyone here to rise. Please join Councilor Cheney in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney. Joining us this evening is, and acting as recording secretary, is City Clerk Kitty Gargano. I'd ask her to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Here?
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Hoffman,
Present?
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Bogert,
Here.
Counselor Felch,
I am here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Here. We're also joined at council table this evening by City Manager Kirk Biotti and Finance Director Glenn Smith. Agenda, will be moving on the agenda item 21J, which is under new business. Pumpkin Festival 2024 discussion to just after consent and action items. So move it up to the, almost right near the top. Item number 6A, which is a council proclamation. Thank you.
Probably want the box to put it back in.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And this evening, I'd ask the H. Bear family maybe to join me here at the podium and for the presentation of the 2023 Deborah Bionars Memorial Award. I'll step up if you don't mind.
Was here or on this side?
Here's great, right? Stand right up here. So, it's terrific to have Jeffrey, Stephen, and Rachel joining us this evening. And this year, last year's 2023 Deborah Bionars Memorial Award is for Harold H. Bear. 36 years ago, the Laconia City Council established the Deborah Bionars Memorial Award for outstanding service to children and youth in the Lakes region in memory of police officer Deborah Bionars. Late Officer Bionars served the city and its youth with uncommon devotion, dedication, and distinction during her 9 years with the police department before her death in 1987. Each year, a committee comprised of one city councilor, one member of the police department, and one member of the school board selects an individual to be recognized for this award based on nominations from members of the community. The award honors a member of the community who has enlivened and enriched the lives of young people. This year, the committee has chosen to honor the memory of Harold H. Bear, a lifetime resident of Laconia, by presenting this award as a tribute for his many contributions to our community and its youth. For many years, Harold and H. Bear Studios sponsored two youth teams, one in the Little League Farm System and the other in the Lou Thanis Youth Basketball League, the latter which he co-founded and also coached for 11 years. He was instrumental in making it a rule in the Lou Thanis Youth Basketball League that all kids got to see playing time in every game, not counting all-star games. He always felt it was important for kids to have fun, that the game could be competitive, and the want to win could be there, but that coaches and parents should never lose sight of kids getting to be kids, having fun and enjoying the game of sport. His legacy continues on in everyone whose lives he touched. In his will, Harold left financial donations to LAYBL, Laconia Little League, and Warner Football. He also left money to Opeachy Park for the benefit of Laconia's youth, to be determined by the Parks and Recreation Department how best to be used. This time, we are extremely proud to present this year's Deborah Bionars Award in the memory of Harold H. Bear. And I would like to present the proclamation to you, Rachel. And here is a beautiful item plate commemorating this event. So congratulations on behalf of your husband and your father. Thank you. Maybe someone else could take a photo.
Yeah, let's get one of the awards. I'll get a picture of him handing it to you. And then we'll get a picture of the three of us. Okay.
Here, I'm happy to take a photo with you guys.
All three of us in?
Yes, you're in. No photographer list, you'll see. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Oh, the box. Box for you. Okay, agenda item 7A, which is acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. Item number 7A, which is our regular city council meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2024. Minutes of this meeting were distributed to members of the city council on shortly after that meeting, and there was one change submitted to the clerk, so they have been amended as such. Councilor Cheney noted that in the original minutes that he is a disabled veteran, but he is not 100% disabled, and this change would have no impact on his personal property taxes. So that is an amendment made to the meetings, but with only that correction or change submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. Agenda item number 7B, which are the City Council regular meeting minutes of January 30th, 2024, minutes of the special meeting, the special Laconia City Council goal-setting meeting of January 30th, 2024 were distributed to members of the City Council, and with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. Before we get on to agenda item number 8, this is the point where we are going to pull forward agenda item 21J. Let me see, H-I-J. I don't know if is there something in our packet? No, it's nothing that's substantive, but just a sheet.
No substantive, yeah.
Yes. So as all of us were made aware, either through the article in the Laconia Daily Sun or perhaps a conversation with someone in the city, it's been determined by the Lakes Region Chamber of Commerce that downtown Laconia, which encompasses the Main Street area, which has served as the headquarters of the New Hampshire Pumpkin Festival since 2015, I believe, a decision has been made by their board of directors and by the executive director to move it to Weirs Beach, sort of leaving downtown, in my personal opinion, high and dry, which is, this issue has come up As many of you know, in previous council meetings from years ago, there had been some discussion about this festival being moved by the chamber to exit 20 at the Tanger outlets. There was also discussion at some point that Meadowbrook was discussed as a possible venue. We had a public meeting concerning that at the Colonial Theater probably a year and a half or 2 years ago, when the public had an opportunity to voice some of their displeasure with the idea of moving it, and a renewed commitment maybe from some of the businesses downtown to make sure that the festival stayed in the downtown area. And also, what we've tried to do is continue to be a good collaborator with the Chamber of Commerce in making sure that the event was successful from the perspective of the city, making sure that all the resources they needed to have a successful event were made available to them. The city has also made an annual contribution to the cost, both in financially to the event, as well as in services, which have been donated to the event as well. And I think what is particularly, I don't know about everyone up here, and you all have an opportunity to speak, but I felt a little blindsided to some extent about this idea of moving the event, because I thought last year's may have been one of the best events we've had in recent memory. Certainly. Not only was the weather perfect, but the streets were jam-packed with families, with vendors, with entertainment, and there was a tremendous spirit on the streets of the city of downtown Laconia that was just what I think Mayor Engler and Charlie St. Clair had probably envisioned when they discussed moving the Pumpkin Festival from Keene, where it was no longer welcome, and bringing it here to the city of Laconia. So I'm going to open this up for discussion among council right now, as well as maybe an opportunity if people are here this evening who would like to speak to that matter and that matter only. How about now would be the appropriate time, I guess, to have you come up. So if there are people in the public want to speak, we will try to keep public comments to a reasonable length, Representative St. Clair, but I don't want to cut you off unnecessarily and
Jeez.
Nice tie.
absolutely incorrigible. Anyway, I am speaking to you, so we're going to try and keep, we don't want to make it repetitive, but I want to give everybody an opportunity. I think there's some salient points here that need to go on the public record, and I'm glad that you've taken the initiative and the lead to come on up here and speak. So, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and the council, the city manager. I think most people, well, first of all, I want to speak about the Chamber of Commerce and their executive director. I know how hard they work at this event. It is not an easy event to put on. I think most people haven't even a smidgen of an idea of how much work this is. And I appreciate that. And I don't go to their board meetings, but I have an event I work with too. So I can imagine all the things that are discussed and the issues and problems that have to be dealt with. So I just want to go on record as saying that. But getting back to Pumpkin Fest in downtown Laconia, as most of you remember, when the city of Keene unwisely decided to give it up, Laconia got in line with a bunch of other cities, not just in New Hampshire, but in Vermont and Massachusetts too, who wanted the group in Keene to give them the rights to bring it to their city. And in New Hampshire, we're talking Hampton Beach. Nashville was doing backflips to get it. Claremont, Peterborough, those are some of the ones on the top of my head. So this was a big deal to get it to Laconia. They had a vote, and with the help of what we proposed here in our infrastructure here, the group in Keene decided to bring it to Laconia. It was never. Well, I remember the discussion I had with the mayor at the time, Ed, and his, bringing it here, and his first response to me was, "Well, do you and Jen want to run it?" And you know, I talked to Jen about it, and we just, you know, we just didn't have the time with everything else, especially that first year. So the mayor's next comment was, well, let's see if the chamber can take it and run it through the chamber and maybe get some benefits from it. So that is how that all came about. If the chamber doesn't want to run it, the city needs to step forward and say, let's do something to make sure this stays downtown. This is a downtown event. It's a Laconia City event. Things can happen in other areas, but Laconia, that's why it came here. We have the infrastructure here, we have the buildings, we have everything that goes with this type of an event. This isn't, you know, an event with a lot of motor vehicles running around all over the place. It's concentrated in one area. And that's really how it has to stay. That's why it came here. It didn't come here because we were just lucky. There was a lot of work to get Keene, the group in Keene, to approve it to come here. You know, as a segue, and I've spoken to some of the council members about this, the city of Laconia needs a department to handle events like this. The city should not be 1 or 2 events the whole year. We have 12 months. And we've got beautiful things around here that people love to see. We know that from all over the country, if not the world. So the city should have an events department that does nothing but events. Don't blend it with an economic development or Parks and Rec or any other department. It really needs to be an events department that just concentrates on this. That's what's needed in this city. And it's not like it's a brand new idea. This happens in cities and towns all over the country with great success. And we've got an eager public that wants to have this stuff happen. There are other groups that will help because I'm going to go back to Motorcycle Week. Jen and I can't do everything. We look to other people to do events during the rally. But the bottom line is, I'm not going to be around forever. I can't promise Jennifer is going to want to do this job with everything that she does outside of the job. And I don't even know if the board of directors, which is a nonprofit organization itself, if they're going to want to be able to do this forever. But the city is going to be here forever, God willing. And this is something that not just Motorcycle Week, but Pumpkin Fest, and you know, there's just so much that can be done. So I want to really encourage you to look at that and think strongly about that. So that will help something like this. But the bottom line tonight is Pumpkin Fest. It needs to stay in downtown Laconia. That's why it came here. And the mayor already pointed out how great it was last year, and that should just continue to grow. I can't think of anything else without repeating myself. So, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Come on up, Lynn.
Good evening. So, I wasn't born...
Introduce yourself so they
Oh,
can keep
Lynn
a
Paquette.
general area, ward you live in, your
I
address.
live on Cross Street. I don't know what ward. I vote at Memorial Park.
Ward 4.
Ward 4.
That's good.
I wasn't born in Laconia. I was born in Belmont. I'm a transplant from when I was 17 years old. But I'm going to tell you what, I love the city as much as my mom did. And I don't know if anyone, my mom was Doris Makeley. When I heard that they were thinking about bringing Pumpkin Fest, taking it and packing it up and moving it to the Weirs. So what about all those people who don't have cars, who are foot traffic, who pack their kids up in wagons and drag them to Pumpkin Fest? Talk about it all year round, because that was the high point of their year. We're taking that right away because they can't afford the $20 round trip train ticket that it's going to cost to get to the Weirs. Shame on us for cutting them right out of that. It's disgusting to even think that we're going to pull it out of the city of Laconia. It's a great evening. It's a great afternoon. We've cut it back a lot. And I know that because it used to be 2 full days, and now it's like we squeak in out Friday night and part of Saturday. But still, I think for the sake of community and our downtown our downtown businesses, we need to keep it where it's at, in downtown Laconia. Thank you.
Thank you. Come right up, Mr. Gaynor.
Hi, my
The only thing
name
we
is...
ask is you take your lid off.
What?
Take your lid off, that's all.
Okay, that's my Masonic hat.
I know it is. I know.
I'm a member of the Masonic Lodge here in Laconia. Arrived in 1984. I own the Lobster
And your
Pound.
name is Lou Gaynor, for the record.
Lou
Just keeping
Gaynor.
the minutes.
I had owned the Lobster Pound for 26 years. Had 40, 50 Laconia students working for me all that time. And I represent the lodge. I like the store owners make the money. They could use the income. That's one big thing. And we park cars, and we raise about $5,700. And we give out scholarships of $2,000 a year. We total about $31,740 that we raise and we give back to the city. We have the Odd Fellas, tenants in our building, which they don't pay anything, and they give out about $50,000 to the city, and they're with us. So you see,
So is that all generated?
That's
is that
all generated
income
from the
Pumpkin
lodge.
Fest? Is it generated from Pumpkin Fest?
no, this is generated from the lodge, and the lodge would like the parking. That $5,700 does help to pay,
So 5,700 comes from the Pumpkin Fest.
comes
parking
from the
cars.
Pumpkin Fest.
Got it, yeah.
Parking, and we use that for scholarships, hands across the table, the Children of the Lions, and it just goes on, the money that we give away. But we do need the Pumpkin Fest to stay here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Anyone else like to speak to this? Come right up.
Good evening.
Hi.
Anthony Barzik. I'm from Newmarket, New Hampshire, but I own Hector's Restaurant downtown. So I see some familiar faces here, so it's great to be here this evening. I'd like to read you something, just take a minute. Our vision is to be the preeminent business organization in the Lakes region, creating new opportunities for our members, driving economic growth through collaboration with other organizations, and thereby building a stronger community. To create value for members through collaboration and education that promotes a more engaged community and thriving economy for the businesses in the Lakes region. Values are collaboration, leadership, growth, integrity, vision, and community. Those words are the vision statement, the mission statement, and the values of the Lakes Region Chamber of Commerce. It doesn't sound like what the downtown businesses are experiencing now with the decisions that have been made by the Lakes Region Chamber. You know, I was very upset when I first heard about this. That upset kind of changed to disappointment. And so what I'm most disappointed about now is not myself. Hector's will go on. We've been around for almost 40 years. It's my staff, right? My staff look forward to that each and every year. They were excited, not for the extra money that they would make and tips and so forth, but just because it was they had so much fun, exhausted at the end of the day, seeing all their friends and people from around the community coming in. It was a real big event for them. So I'll go on, but for them, it's a huge impact. It's a huge impact to the community that used to love to come to Hector's. I'm saying used to, right? To come to Hector's that day, we'd have bands out there, a great time, and that's all gone now, right? And I don't understand why, right? I've heard a lot of reasonings. It's almost like they wanted to make a move, and now they're backfilling with reasons to make that move, the way I see it. And so, you know, it's very disappointing, I think, to a lot of people in the community from what I've heard. I hope that a solution can be found by members of this council and the mayor to keep that in downtown. It is so precious to the people here. It's so important to the vitality that we've experienced in the downtown area over the last several years. When I came here 6 years ago when I bought the business, I said, downtown's kind of, I don't know, what's the deal, right? And I watched it over the last several years really become invigorated. And this was a big part of it. So if you can find a solution to make this work downtown, I think, you know, you will be applauded for that by a lot of people, a lot of businesses. Count on that day for money, for their staff, and for enjoyment of the community. So I appreciate your time and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for the commitment to downtown. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Well,
My name is George Bousquet. We just recently opened up a little group shop downtown on Pleasant Street, and we opened up this past October, so we made the first Pumpkin Fest. It was really nice. It was wonderful. I'd like to see it to stay downtown. My only issue was that they moved, when they had it downtown, they moved all of it, most of it to the parking lot over here. And it took away a lot from the businesses on Pleasant Street, because nothing was really going on other than people parking and they walk in this direction. So I would love to see it come back downtown, and I would like to see it spread around throughout downtown. Leave the parking lot over here for parking the cars. It doesn't belong in the Weirs. Like I said, everybody needs to walk to this. A lot of people depend on walking to this. They don't have cars. Even if they did have cars, and if they had to drive to the Weirs, now the people that do have parking available up there are gonna take advantage and start charging $20 a car load, or $20 to park your car now. It's not gonna work out in the Weirs. They have Motorcycle Week, let them keep Motorcycle Week, let downtown Laconia have Pumpkin Fest. We love it, we wanna keep it downtown.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. My name is Rachel Marsh. I own Laconia Village Bakery, and this is a huge loss for us. I come here to say that this is one of our biggest days of revenue for the 2 days that Pumpkin Festival happens. It was definitely a huge loss when I heard that it's going to be moved to the Weirs, and I have been in contact with a lot of the downtown business owners, and they're in the same boat as me. We're really disappointed, and I have took it upon myself to arrange a meeting with a lot of the downtown businesses, and that's going to be happening in a couple weeks, and we're going to try and brainstorm and see what we can put together. So we're hoping that we can do something down here, because we want it to stay.
So Rachel, just your preference is for Pumpkin Fest to remain essentially on Main Street in the downtown area centered?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but what, in reaching out to other businesses, is it a discussion to figure out how to keep it downtown and what you could do better? Or is it in saying, or maybe it's two things. If it is moved to Weirs Beach, you would be thinking about what would you do if it weren't centered down on Main Street? Does that make sense, my question?
I don't think anybody will be participating in the Weirs from downtown Laconia. So I think it's more what we can do downtown.
Okay. All right. I got it. Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff DeForge, resident of Laconia. I live
Get the
off
last
of
name.
Pleasant Street, excuse me?
Hold on one second. What's your, could you say your name again so the clerk can hear it?
Jeff DeForge.
Sorry. Terrific. Thank you very much.
Resident of Laconia, live off of Pleasant Street. Plenty of parking down my way, by the building, the brick building, school. You can even park over in the Parkettes Funeral Home area. Seminole. I'm just saying, there's plenty of places to park in the south end. Everybody walks down here. I come down here twice during the day, Saturday night, maybe Friday night. My wife works at the hospital. like she mentioned, people at the hospital mentioned, if it's in the weirs, we're not going. So that's just my point, and you know, I'm kind of getting aggravated because of the whole thing, but I just want to voice my opinion, and it's got to stay down here.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come and
Thank you.
speak.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Mayor, councilors, city manager. I'm Mitch Hamill. I could wear many different hats here tonight. As a realtor, I talk about downtown Laconia. I've talked to many people coming into the area about the Pumpkin Fest. As the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, we've had numerous positive comments about, excuse me, the Pumpkin Fest. As a community, when we have something positive happen, we should embrace it. And good things come from good events like that. Businesses thrive. Events like this are heavily populated. So to echo everybody's comments, it should stay downtown. I think that having it brought more into the nucleus of downtown is also a good thing. So I encourage positive feedback, and I hope it can stay downtown as well. Thanks much.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, councilors, Patrick Wood, Ward 1. I was also surprised at this proposed move to the Weirs, but I was even more puzzled by the reasons that they gave, at least as expressed in the newspaper. One was, well, the businesses are closed in the Weirs, so we'll have more room to spread out and get more parking there. And the second one, well, there isn't enough parking here. It's too crazy downtown to have parking down here. And a third one, well, a local church is interfered with by having this event downtown. Well, if you have the event downtown, the businesses are open, and they're going to benefit from a lot more people being here. If you have it in the Weirs, the businesses are closed, who's going to benefit from it? The people that they bring in from outside, the vendors and the trucks and stuff. Wonderful. But that's not helping our local businesses that much. As far as the parking, we've had so many events downtown with thousands and thousands of people here. Parking has never been a problem to keep the event from happening. And as far as the local church, I think you've all seen the letter from one of the people very much involved in that church saying, nobody asked us. We like having the Pumpkin Fest here. We have things that we can do, that we can sell and make money for our church and to help the community as part of it. So I was puzzled by their decision, but even more puzzled by the rationale. And so, in my opinion, we ought to do everything we can to keep it downtown because that is where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
I'd have a question when you're...
Yeah, maybe we can, let me, anyone like to speak for a first time before we start opening it up for come on up. Someone's coming up maybe right after Matt. Would that be all right, Paul? You're boxed out, Matt.
Good evening. Paul Fitzgerald, Old North Main Street. I'm reminded of the conversation that used to be led by former Mayor Frazier when he was talking about Motorcycle Week. And he would constantly ask the question, who owns it? Who's taking responsibility for it? And there were dozens of answers. My personal answer was, it's owned by the rally attendees. They're the ones that make it happen. I think the same's true here. City doesn't own this event. Chamber doesn't own this event. The people who come to it own the event. They make it happen. The rest of us are beneficiaries. to some degree. Some of us are stakeholders, whatever. But it's owned by the community and the attendees. The first time it moved to Laconia, or the first year it was in Laconia, I was significantly surprised by the reaction locally. I was going to say hundreds, but maybe thousands of people attended, carved pumpkins, came downtown, and I remember when my wife and I were going to go down and attend, I didn't think it would be very hard to find a place. Well, we ended up parking up close to O-Pee-Chee Park and walking downtown, but we weren't the only ones. It was like a pilgrimage. People just pouring downtown. And over the years, with weather and pandemics and everything else, attendance has waxed and waned, but it's still a popular event, and it's identified with downtown Laconia, and it should remain identified with downtown Laconia. It fits here. This is an old mill town. It's got the structure and the brick and the buildings, but it's also got the spirit. You had Pumpkin Alley, where we painted well, not we, but people painted the street orange, and you had all of that spirit, and it's all downtown. The Weirs is a great place. It's wonderful in the summertime, certain weekends in the fall season, but you're not going to have people walking from O-Pee-Chee Park or from the south end or from parking down by Water Street, something like that, all to congregate in that one area. It's simply not going to happen, folks. It belongs downtown. And actually, you've got a great degree of authority over it because you're going to be granting the permits for it or making the temporary traffic orders, etc. It was brought into Laconia, as Charlie indicated, to be a downtown event. It's thrived downtown. Maybe there's some issues now. Then it's time for the community to step up, just like it did in times when Motorcycle Week was looking kind of peaked, and then grew to the event of 400,000 people. I'm not sure we'll see that with Pumpkin Fest, but the possibilities are there. I'm sure you all remember things like the events at the Old Mill, events downtown, kind of a midway atmosphere. It's a great event in the fall. If it's not broke, don't fix it. It's not broke. We'll leave it as it is. Please do what you can to reverse the Chamber's decision and keep it downtown. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Come on up, Matt.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Souza, and I always forget where I live, but I live somewhere in Laconia. I'm in your ward.
Ward 4.
That's right. And I usually hardly ever speak at this because people see and hear enough from me by far. But since I thought listening to the discussion, I could add a few things. As some of you know, I volunteer some, and I'm involved in a lot of events, big and small, big, medium, and small. And I know how difficult it is even to put on a small event and how much goes into it, especially a volunteer event, and how much the volunteers have to put into it. I also would not like to see Pumpkin Fest leave the downtown area, though I must say I'm not against seeing it grow and seeing other areas like the Weirs do something, if they want to. I don't think that should be necessarily an either-or thing, but I don't think it should be viewed as being retreating from one area and being forced to go into another area, because that's kind of how it sounds. And I have to say, a lot of agencies and organizations in the downtown area get involved. The Senior Center puts on a great lunch event that they use as a fundraising tool and to get their awareness out. That's only one. I think if this did happen, you'd really need to think about vans or vehicles to transport people, because a lot of people do walk to the area for the event. So I'd like to see events that knit all the areas of Laconia together. the Weirs, Lakeport, downtown, the south end, the north end. But at the same time, it should go in an organic way that doesn't seem like it's pressured by events, because that's not a good thing. But the one thing I do know is that for any event, if it means something to people, then volunteers have to step up, or else just a few people can't do it. They give out after a while, and there's burnout, and there's people that can't come back and nobody to replace them. I think Charlie's idea about a department of events or something dedicated at City Hall to handle events, because we're getting known for events, and there might be more. That might be a good thing to look at. That's all I had to say. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Matt. Anyone else like to speak for a first time?
I am Jeff H. We're in Ward 3. First thing I'd like to say about the Pumpkin Fest is I hope there will be more pumpkins like there was the first year, where we went for the record, weren't near it, but there were pumpkins everywhere. That looks like Pumpkin Fest. Once again, I didn't attend this past year, but the year before, the whole parking lot was full with vendors. I don't know how many did well. There was a lot of people walking around. I know some vendors with high-end art and things. Wasn't their market, wasn't their crowd. Maybe we cut back a little bit on the vendors, have more activities, and before we bring in any food vendors, I mean, some who are selling something different than the food places downtown, but we should also check, and maybe this is a Chamber of Commerce thing, with our restaurants, our bakeries, our delis, do they want to set up on this side of Beacon Street also? Do they want to have a catering location too? Wayfair Coffee maybe, because I remember there was a place selling coffee, but right around the block was Wayfair. So I hate to take some money away from the downtown merchants. If it's weather's nice, yeah, there's enough people, enough money go around for everyone. But if it rains, then it's really a difficult day. And that would be the other thing. I don't think it's possible, but if there could ever be a rain date or somehow figure how to have it go on even during the rain. And the other thing is with the parking, I did like the shuttles. They had that a couple times. And I parked in, way over on Lexington Drive. They had parking and the bus brought me. Now I could have found a space closer and walked around downtown, but it was just simple to do that. And I'm glad if it raises money charging for parking and goes to good causes. But I do have a little issue with charging for parking after we've invited people from all over and said, here, come to this festival where most events, most things, a lot of things are going to be where you're going to spend money, especially if you have kids and they want something or want to go on one of the rides or slides, to charge for parking. But, you know, it's what's feasible, what's available, and I know it costs the city money to do things, so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Anyone else like to speak for a first time? Hello.
Good evening. Hello. My name is Pat Tierney, Ward 4, and I'm wanting to see the Pumpkin Fest remain downtown. The spirit of it is such that that would be greatly diminished in the Weirs Beach at that time of year, and with the facility they have to offer up there. I love the Weirs, but it's not downtown Laconia. I also believe that the system is an economic consideration, which is that we don't want to lose it downtown, and also the direct approach of the parking and everything down here just makes total sense that it remain down here. And the overall consideration, in my mind, is that it remain as is. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat.
I'm Andrea Chin. I live on Pleasant Street. I've been coming to the Pumpkin Festival since it started. I will speak on what Jeff said at the beginning. We tried to get the great number of pumpkins. We were unsuccessful. I, at that point, worked for an organization downtown Laconia with over 100 employees. Chamber of Commerce never came and asked us if we wanted to partake. Now, that was a building for another 100. I go back to what Charlie said, getting a committee for Laconia. At the beginning of the Pumpkin Fest, again, volunteers were turned away from the Chamber of Commerce. And I'll say, Mr. Phelps is quite familiar with an auction that happens every year, and if it's not for the locals and the volunteers, nothing will be successful. I really support that it stays in Laconia, and you certainly know, because there's plenty of people that want to see it succeed, you would get the volunteers.
Thank you,
Thank you for letting me come back up. I kind of disagree a little bit with Paul Fitzgerald on one thing he said. I get what he says about this is definitely the people and all the merchants, et cetera. But the city of Laconia, in my estimation, owns the rights to this event, period. So it is not any nonprofit or anybody else that can say we're moving this or we're doing this. Again, in my estimation, the way it was set up back in 2015. The city of Laconia, make no mistake, owns the rights to this event. And so it should be up to you to say, you know what, you guys, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. It's your choice, not anybody else's. When I say you, I mean the council with taking in the comments from your citizens. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Anyone else like to speak before we? I will say that the council will enter into a discussion right now on this. And we're going to keep the discussion just among the councilors to keep this moving forward. So if you've got anything that's burning right now that you need to share, now would be the appropriate time because you won't have an opportunity after, once we start our discussion here.
Now, I'm gonna make it quick. See, I had brain cancer years ago. My brain only runs on one lobe. So I'm pretty forgetful. But anyways, like I believe they're the Parkettes back there. They live over there by the old Weeks's type area. I deliver newspapers. Plenty of parking over there. You got plenty of parking at Meredith Savings Bank. You got plenty of parking even at Vista. And Mr. Fitzgerald, whoever was that, people do where I am coming off of Pleasant Street, coming down in droves. I mean, I'm frustrated about this whole thing, and I'm just a resident, you know? I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking if it leaves Laconia. I got a lot of friends that park at my place. We all walk down. It's a good time.
Thank you very much for taking a few minutes to speak. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's it. I'll shut up now.
That was politically well done.
All right. Let me look to my fellow counselors here for some discussion about what next steps might look like on behalf of the city. Counselor Susie.
First, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for everyone who spoke in favor of Pumpkin Fest. I really believe in it also. I'm surprised a couple of things. Number one, I don't see anyone here that was in favor of it, nor any representative of the Chamber of Commerce is here. Secondly, and I know I've had discussions with probably a lot of you, including you, Mr. Mayor, for a long time, we should take a more active role. I know we do. We funded it, we helped out, we volunteered, a lot of things. I'd like to see the council, as Mr. Representative Sinclair, mentioned, we should put together some kind of a committee that includes membership of the council, okay, and work towards events. We had for a long time, well, not for long, for a very short period of time, we had the athletic, when they did the running and biking and Timberman. We had the coffee festival. We've lost some of these things. As Representative St. Clair said, this is a great community for all these kinds of things. We have so much to offer. Okay, I mean, from year round we do. And we have 12 months, do it. And I'd be strongly in favor of the city doing whatever we could. And I understand budgets are tight, things are tough. Okay, gonna be even more so this coming year. But we should do that, and I'd be willing to step and do whatever I could to help out. Thank you.
Thank you. I call it the Committee on Fun and Festivities, led by Councilor Cheney, because he is Mr. Fun. Look at him.
Fun and yes, I think that's.
You
When you don't
quiet.
Would you like to speak?
Might I
Councilor?
say one or two things, Mr. Mayor? The first thing I'd like to say is I've sat here for a while now, for a few years, and I've never seen this many people here all on the same side of an issue. Matter of fact, I don't remember the last time we were this full, let alone all agreeing that we should keep something like this going on downtown. I would like to echo what one of the people said. My wife and several other ladies volunteered to help and were turned away by the present organization. I also have some experience with parking concerns in this city, and I think I can assure you that the downtown's a lot better off for parking than the Weirs ever thought of being. Admittedly, it'll be otherwise a ghost town, but it still doesn't have a plethora of parking. And finally, I would point out that, well, maybe not finally, but I would point out that one of the comments in the paper was the person who was overseeing this felt overworked by it, which I think bolsters what Representative St. Clair suggested. I might not be in total agreement with him, but I think there is a strong inference that the city should take this back and find a way to manage it itself. Thank you.
Councilor Cheney. Councilor Hoffman.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody that came out to speak on this issue. I think it really underlines, what I've been hearing or reading on social media. The opposition to this move is overwhelming. I've heard very few, maybe no people have pointed out any benefits of moving this event. I think it's been really successful. I think if there was legitimate issues with the event that would force a move to Weirs Beach, I think it would be a different story, but I think people are kind of perplexed because it has been so successful, and it seems to me like a risk to move the location to Weirs Beach when it's been so successful downtown. I'm not sure how much there is to be gained, and it seems to me there's a lot to lose. I think we should do whatever we can to keep this event downtown.
Thank you. Councilor, let's go this way a little bit. I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the thing that bothers me the most was that there's never been a discussion. We're being told. I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, and I only speak for myself, but I think the other councilors should think also. I don't like to be told what we're going to do. When there's no discussion, there was no means of any dialogue whatsoever. We were told this is the way it's going to be. I'm sorry. I mean, does the tail wag the dog or the dog wag the tail? I hate to put it in those terms, it sounds colloquial, but I think we're facing a situation where we have to put our foot down and say no, period. Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome. Councilor Bogert, if you have something to say.
Yes. I too agree that it should stay downtown. I live in the South End, and my wife and myself, and when my kids were here, we would all walk downtown, not drive, we would walk, and we'd spend the evening time enjoying the events and stuff of downtown. Friday night was always a special night because me and my wife could come down without the kids and enjoy a lot of the adult side of Pumpkin Fest that was available to us, and then walk home. You didn't have to worry about driving after having your favorite beverage or anything. You were close enough to walk. If this event is moved to the Weirs, it's going to cut off a lot of the walking. That's what makes the community special, is the people get together and you walk as a community. I remember when the high school was looking to be relocated off of Meredith Center Road. And the biggest problem I had about moving, it'd have been nice to have a brand spanking new high school, but no one would be able to walk to it. You would have to drive to it, you would have to be bused to it and everything. So that led into why the high school day stayed downtown. Everybody walks to Friday night football. Everybody enjoys the locality of having that center point and being able to enjoy events like this downtown so that the community can come together and walk is very important to the success of our city. I agree with Sosi, that Councilor Sosi, that maybe we should look at having our own department and taking over these types of events. I think it would be financially, in the short term it might cost, but in the long term I think it would pay off because we would be able to control the event and how it grows and make sure that our businesses and stuff downtown prosper. Thank you.
You're welcome. Counselor Felch?
So, as we've seen, the people of Laconia want it downtown. I agree with that. I think we need to find a way to work with the chamber, whether we have our own events committee that works with the chamber to do it. Because I can tell you from running events myself, it takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of work, and the chamber has done a lot to help this come downtown. And hopefully we can convince them to keep it downtown.
Thank you. Go right ahead, Counselor Susie.
Thank you, everyone. My question comes to what probably everybody wants to ask. What premise does the city council have to turn around and say to the chamber, it is not moving, we're gonna absorb it, or we're gonna take it, we're gonna create a committee, we're gonna do something to manage it, oversee it. You're welcome to participate. Do whatever, like Councilor Felch said, work together, but at the same time, this is not moving. There was a letter or an email I know that we all received, okay, from the lady who originally started, the one in Keene, and then came here and worked with Laconia for the first year until somebody stepped in and said, hey, it cost us too much money for her, we're gonna do it ourselves. We've never heard anything, Mr. Mayor, like you said, or Councilor Haynes said. The chamber never came to us and said, we're not making enough money, or there was no disclosure, there was no discussion, nothing. And this is a city event, the city should take it over, should own it. I don't know, and I appreciate what Mr. Fitzgerald said. I'm not sure who has the legal entity of the name or anything else like that, but I believe, and after reading this, City of Laconia, this is our event, we should manage it. Whether we want to form another committee of it, put it under the Parks and Rec, which I've spoken to a lot of you about before, okay? Bring it in the house, we gotta do it. Thank you.
I guess in response to that, what we do have is the power of the purse string. And we do make a contribution to this, and we do.
This year.
We do, no, we keep the power. We have the power of the purse string, and we have also the power of in-kind contributions. So I'm hesitant to wade into the idea that permitting, that we deal with permits, but I would say that it seems to me that a couple of things. One, I'd like to have, I think we may have consensus here that on behalf of the city council and the city of Laconia, the city manager drafts a letter to the chamber and in no uncertain terms expresses our disappointment with their unilateral move to the Weirs without consultation with the city. I think it's also important that I haven't heard of anyone who supports the move, quite frankly, and I have heard of just about everyone in the city who's aware of it speaking in opposition to it. I also think, though, that we should probably extend an olive branch to the chamber because, consistent with Councillor Felch, last year was the best year we'd had of it, in my opinion. That was in no small part because of the work that they put in. But that's just the type of event that we would like to continue, and if they're not able to continue in that capacity and help us host the event downtown, then that's okay too. We need to know immediately so we can move in a different direction.
Correct.
All right, and in so doing, we will allocate our funds accordingly, because I think the investment in downtown is where we'd like to see the allocation of funds to support downtown centric event. All right.
Yep, we can draft
I'd
something
like
up.
to get that out as fast as we can and deliver it.
Draft it up tomorrow.
You know, I would also like to speak with council as well as to, much like the city shares ownership of trademark for Laconia Motorcycle Week, which we've developed over the years. I think that is something that we should do right here and develop that, and so that the ownership of that trade name, if you will, belongs to the city in perpetuity. And we'll have to defer to some advice on council on that as to how to do that best and what the process might look like. So that's it. I think we can all feel quite certain that the chamber is more than welcome to have a secondary event on that week at the Weirs if they like. But I think this event remains downtown. And I think over the next couple of weeks, we figure out, do we build out a committee of volunteers or stakeholders in the downtown community and the city council and the city that oversees this? Do we consider an event administrator of some sort that might assist in this? We're gonna have to come to grips with the cost associated with that, and hopefully we can find someone with the skill level. You know, I think there's a lot of there are a lot of variables here, but I think it's clear that no one wants this moved to the Weirs except the Chamber of Commerce, and I think that's, right now, it sounds like a bridge too far. So.
I'd just add, Mr. Mayor, I think the idea of checking on the city's ownership of the title should be moved on sooner rather than later.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else like to add a letter, to that letter? So, Kirk, we're gonna put the pressure on you, and hopefully we get a
we'll have it
copy.
drafted tomorrow.
Get it drafted by midday tomorrow to take a look at it and get it, whether it's finished by tomorrow afternoon, it's finalized and signed off and delivered to the chamber as fast as we can, maybe even hand-delivered late tomorrow afternoon if possible.
We'll take care of it.
And one more thing to that, as Council Cheney said, let's move quickly on the name.
Yep, he will.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I think we can conclude that agenda item this evening. Those of you who took time out of your evening, thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing else will occur on this tonight, but you'll we'll keep you posted as best we can, and keep the media abreast of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it's proceeding. So thank you very much for taking time out of your night and sharing your.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Moving on, I would like to also move under presentations, the mayor's housing task force update. I'd like to move that forward right now because there are, I believe, 4 people in the back
Yes.
who are waiting as well. So, John, what are you here for?
Fuck you.
We might drag
I
you
like
out
that
all,
one.
I'm gonna drag you out all night here now.
Make your night.
No. Oh, I know. I know.
21E.
Absolutely, yes. Sandra makes my night, not you, John, okay? So, under item 14, under 14A, it's called the Homelessness Task Force, that is now called the Housing Task Force. We have this evening members of the steering committee that has been working diligently with our Housing Task Force, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves. And I believe they have a slide deck to share with us to give you an update as to some of the work that we have been engaged in, and a proposal, which I'll ask the city manager to share with everybody, maybe after the slide deck is finished. It's in here, everybody's got it? Okay, great. So, and anyway, if you can introduce yourselves, and thank you for your patience.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you. So my name is Eric Adams. I'm a detective with Laconia Police Department, and I sit on the steering committee for the Housing Task Force.
Good evening. I am Daisy Pierce. I'm the Executive Director of Navigating Recovery of the Lakes Region, and I'm also on the steering committee for the task force.
And good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. I am Tammy Carmichael, and I'm the Executive Director at the Partnership for Public Health, and I'm also on the steering committee for the task force.
Can everybody see the slide deck?
Yeah.
Okay. Give it just a second before there we go. Okay, so we wanted to start tonight by sharing the vision statement that the task force came up with at our first meeting back in April. As a task force, we envision an equitable community in which everyone has access to a stable and safe home and the resources needed to maintain it. This vision statement to us expands the entire housing continuum. We address people who are currently unsheltered, and we're also addressing folks who are sheltered but are at risk of losing that housing. And it's within that whole continuum that this task force is trying to make sure that people have a safe, stable place to live and the resources to maintain it.
So we just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview and refresh what's been happening. A year ago, this past fall, we went to each of your wards and we spoke to community members. We advertised those forums that we had. We spoke to the community members in each of the wards of the city and had a set of questions that we asked just to kind of see how each ward felt about those experiencing homelessness in the city and what ideas would come up from the different wards and the people living in the wards, and then just providing some education regarding how people become unsheltered in our community and what resources are available in our community. So that was the very first step. And then we brought you or provided you with the report from those forums about this time last year. So it was a year ago last year that you got the report from the forums, what came to light in those forums in each of the wards throughout the city. Then the task force began to meet in April. We put together the task force, we created the vision, we brought together a committee of government partners, nonprofits that are working in the community with the population, and members of the businesses downtown, and they are part of the task force, and we come together, and we've had the police department, the fire department, and those with lived experiences as well are on the task force. And while we are starting to put together our plan and our roadmap for the future, we have already done some things to help in the community. One of those things is the recent projects that Lakes Region Community Developers have been working on to provide some supportive housing of individuals that need assistance and need that connection to social services to maintain a living environment. And then also connecting with those in the community that need assistance with landlords and the benefits that they can receive for those landlords, as well as supporting the grant that was recently received by Lakes Region Mental Health Center. We had written a letter of support and also provided the information that we had collected from the city forums for them to submit that application for that grant that they recently received. So far, that's what the task force has been working on for the past year, basically.
So we meet monthly as a larger task force, and then we also broke into 4 work groups or subcommittees. Each of these work groups was identified from the results of the forums. So we listened to what the constituents had to say, the areas that they were most concerned about, and the ideas that they had for solutions, and then we created work groups based on that. So our first work group is called Communication and Education. This work group has published press releases regarding events in the city that we've done with our unsheltered population. They also are working currently on getting a Facebook page up and running, which we'll use to disseminate information both to the public about what the task force is doing, as well as to our unsheltered folks for resources and information and tips. Our second work group is First Responders and Harm Reduction. This work group has the police department on, the fire department, Belknap Mill, our community action program outreach workers, and Concord Hospital Laconia. This group is looking at things that need to be done immediately to help our unsheltered folks stay alive, basically. And also things we can do to improve the sanitation situation, like porta potties, and then things like tent safety and other information that we want our folks to understand so that we don't lose anyone during the winter months. Third committee is Housing and Land Use. This is a group of people who, like Laconia Housing, and they've worked on projects, Affordable Housing Incentive Program with landlord benefits. They also are looking at current bills in the House that, regarding zoning, accessory dwelling units, things like that, items that we need to keep our eyes on for the agenda. And they also work with landlords on what agreements we can come to keep someone housed. What do we need to do so that a resident doesn't lose their housing? And the fourth work group is our Pallet Village work group. This subcommittee has focused on working with the pallet company, working on a proposal that we'll go over a little bit later, and just trying to identify a property in the city, how this will work, if it will work, the partners that need to be involved, and working out all of those details that then went into the proposal that you guys will get.
One of the things that the housing, the task force is moving into is accountability, and that is putting together a plan, an action plan, MAP, Move, Measure is kind of what we're talking about. And that's so that we all can keep an eye on the goals that we have and we don't get sidetracked. We have a map forward. We are still going to continue to work on the 4 subcommittees that we have in the work groups, but we also want to put together a roadmap because not all of us may be here in the same capacity moving forward, and we want a roadmap so that the task force can continue to move forward even if one of us wouldn't be available at some point in time. So that is one of the next steps for the task force is to work on this action plan so we have this roadmap, so you have a roadmap, you know the things that we're working on, and it's accessible on the Facebook page, and the community knows what is being worked on for the task force.
So I'm just going to touch on the different housing things that we have going on, our Laconia housing continuum, basically. So the first one, obviously, it's experiencing homelessness. So it's these are individuals that are right now are unsheltered. They're living in tents, their cars, situations like that. The next one is your emergency shelters, your shelters. Carry houses. Right now you have Isaiah's. So then we move into what they call like the transitional housing. So this is one of the places that we've identified in the city that we really need to focus on in this city. And transitional housing can actually be a very, very important component to moving someone. And I think most of us have all talked about this in length, right? So really when you're thinking about that transitional housing, this is where, and we're gonna go into this next, is where we would kind of envision, if everything worked out, right, and we could just wave that magic wand, right, the pallet community would come into play, right? This would be that transitional housing model. And so the next one would be the supportive housing, right? So we do have some supportive housing, and you're looking at, affordable housing that includes, other supports, and then you move into your subsidized affordable housing, right? So this really is affordable housing that basically has government subsidies as well. And then you move into your affordable housing, right? Which we all know right now, the way the market is, there really isn't what anybody calls affordable housing, right? Unfortunately. So that's just a quick overview of the housing continuum. And, when it comes to these different stages, it's very important that we understand what each one of them truly is, right? Because if you're only going to focus on one, you're not really looking at that full length of continuum, right? Because people can move up and down in that continuum at any moment, right? Okay, so do you want me to dive in? Or all right, so the pallet community proposal that we're talking about. So this has kind of been thrown around with the steering committee for, I don't know, upwards of probably like a year and a half somewhere. And it really stemmed from the FEMA is where it kind of really stemmed from. So these were kind of first used in Katrina when they had the devastation down there. And so they came up with these quick, portable, easy to put up, easy to take down, very easily cleaned and sanitized areas for people to stay, and they were safe, secure. You could lock your possessions in there, and you didn't have to worry about getting robbed at night like you would as if you were sleeping in a tent, right? And so they are this pallet community. So one of the organizations is called Pallet, and that's the organization that we've been in contact with, we've spoken with. I know Councilor Bogart has listened in on a presentation that they've done before, and so has the city manager and the mayor. And so it's this basically standalone unit, and they have different ones. They have single bed units, they have double beds, they have family units. And so what it would look like is they each have their own little heating, cooling system. And so basically self-contained. So now the cost, right? So they actually reduced the cleanup costs, because if you have these communities in your area, you're not having to worry about like a Spruce Street cleanup issue, right? We all know about that. But also the ability to keep things self-contained. It definitely decreases crime. The fire department actually spoke with the Burlington Fire Department. Their calls for service dropped significantly in the city of Burlington, where they do have one of those already. Crime rate's gone down, calls for service are gone down as a whole, based on this pallet community that's in Burlington right now. Community collaboration. So there's a lot of community collaboration that would go on. We as a city do very well at community collaboration. We are actually a model that a lot of other towns and cities in the state look to as far as collaboration. This is not like a permanent type housing thing for one individual. This is solely going into a transitional living aspect, right? To get them stabilized and get them into more stable housing. Obviously the concern right now is where, right? And where is this stable housing gonna be? But not only that, you have to look at anybody that would come into the Pallet community would be vetted through already one of the organizations that we are already working with, right? So they would already be integrated into at least one of the community services that are already being they're already working with right now. Rapid and responsive, right? So these shelters can be built in just days, and the village can address our immediate housing continuum needs right now. Obviously, there's going to be a cost associated with it. Down the road, the benefits definitely would outweigh what we're doing now, right, as a city. And it's a great opportunity to kind of at least go into this with an open mind and just think about it.
I just want to make one point clear that when we say these shelters can be built in just a matter of days, that's after all the site work has been done.
Yep.
The ground has to be level. We have to have access to utilities, including electric and water. So they are pop-up in a sense, but after the groundwork has been laid and we're ready to go.
Right. And this is just a quick overview. I mean, I could go deep into each one, but we just don't want to take up too much of your time, so.
And we do know you guys have the proposals, so I don't know if you've had a chance to read them yet, or if you have questions based on what we presented, but we're happy to answer any questions that may have arisen during our presentation.
So thank you. As we all know, I think maybe just take half a step back. We've seen a spike in the number of people experiencing homelessness in and around the city. We know there are a fair number of campsites and have been for the past couple of years, which creates a whole plethora of problems to surrounding neighbors, potential businesses, accessibility when there's an emergency, unsightliness. There's also the issue of being on public land where it's strictly prohibited. And as Chief Canfield said years ago, moving them from one spot in the city to another spot in the city, it's like squeezing a balloon. You don't necessarily solve the problem if you're not on that spot anymore. You end up moving again. So the issue comes, we know we have Isaiah 61, we have Carey House, we have Belknap House, and we also still have a fair number of people living in the street and camping. We know that the camping portion is it can't go on forever. We certainly can't have people camping out in the Rotary Park area, Meredith Bridge Cemetery area, Spruce Street. We don't want that anymore. So how do we move people out of there, knowing that most of these people will in fact stay in the city? Many of them have residency here in the city. They are determined to be domiciled here. Some will go to Isaiah, some will go to Belknap, some might get into Carey House, but still the maximum number of people that they can serve at any given time is 50 to 75 maximum. That leaves us a delta there of a couple hundred people experiencing homelessness here. One thing that we've learned in our discussions is that moving people directly from homelessness to an apartment, say, creates a situation where there's likely eviction for most of them, simply because many of them just don't have the skills from going to living on the street or living in a tent, jumping into an apartment, say, that Laconia Housing may have. So how do you take them from living on the street, being truly homeless, and helping them get a roof over their head, allow them an opportunity to get on top of mental health issues, medication issues, maybe substance abuse issues, maybe just cleaning them up and having a place that they can get mail at, because as people will tell you, they can't get jobs because they don't have an address. And if they keep using Isaiah 61, employers know that it's Isaiah 61 and immediately rule people out. You know, I think our goal here is to take someone who is homeless and move them along the housing continuum to get to the point where they live more independently, less reliant on government services, and hopefully with the ability to fill a job. So the pallet community comes in this transitional portion of one end and getting these people prepared to hold a job, prepared to live in a more independent place like, say, Laconia housing option. It's meant to be short-term. It's also meant that when you have 25 of these standalone dorm rooms, if you will, in a single space, it's meant that they'll have 24/7 supervision of sorts. They'll also be actively engaged in one of our community resources, whether that be Lakes Region Mental Health, Navigating Recovery, you know, a whole wide array of opportunities for people to address those concerns. And that would be, and there are two of these, one in Boston, one in Burlington, Vermont, that have had significant success in getting people away from being homeless to something that's more stable. My idea on this, and pursuing it a little bit, if you will, is that I don't believe it's in the city's budget to finance this and do it, though there may be certainly a need for us to do something. I had an opportunity along with Kirk, to meet with Commissioner Caswell at Business and Economic Affairs at the state level, who had been handling the ARPA funding, federal government funding during COVID, which was about $1 billion, I think, that came into the state. Everyone wanted a portion of the $1 billion, everyone. A number of agencies throughout the state put in plans on how they wanted to access that money and use it. The idea right now is that all of the money has been spoken for, but it's unclear whether all the money can actually be used by the agencies that it's been allocated to. So that money may flow back to the Business and Economic Affairs Department. So there might be a second opportunity for initiatives that municipalities may want to pursue. This, I thought, was an option to bring to all of you to start to think about, is it a good option for us if the funds were available and allocated to the city of Laconia, to maybe take a bold step and have a pilot program here and try a pallet community. I will say that in reaching out to a lot of our community stakeholders, whether it be the folks that the police department, fire department, nonprofits, there has been a desire to actually try to do something like this. It's not a perfect option necessarily. I think there are plenty of challenges associated with it. The money's there for us to try and do something and really take a bold step forward and address this issue of housing and homelessness. This might be an option that is available to us, and I bring it to all of you to put in front of you to vet and to be critical and ask questions, and to see if there's something here that maybe we could do as a city and be the first in the state to have a pilot program to say, this is, you know, if any community's going to do it, it's Laconia. One, we're the right sized, and we are not Manchester, we are not Concord. We have real strengths in this community. And how do we leverage those strengths to make a difference in the issue of homelessness? And this is an option that I put in front of you, and through the work of the steering committee and other members on the housing task force, I think it's worth considering, and I hope you will consider it and keep it as an item for further discussion. This has been delivered to the commissioner within the last week or so. I haven't heard back from him. I may not hear back from him, so it may be all for naught. But my job in this because we know the number one concern in this city over the last couple of years has been, what are you going to do about homelessness? And ultimately, I don't have a specific answer because I don't think there is one simple answer to solve this. But we need to consider doing something. And if we can get the funds from the federal government that pass through our state government to at least try and do this and hopefully get the results we're looking for, it might be worth a shot. Go right ahead. You can pose a question to these three or me.
Yeah, I do have a few questions right off the bat. I see that the operational cost for 2 years is 1.3 million. Do you have a rough breakdown of what that entails?
Yeah, so the staffing is 24/7 staffing, so that's a large part of the cost. In addition to that, the HVAC systems for these are electric, and so in the wintertime, keeping the units warm enough, and in the summertime, cool enough, so there's the electric cost. Water for the bathrooms, but most of it is the staffing of 24/7 security, basically.
And I guess my next question is there like an economy of scale to this? Whereas if we would consider a larger number, it brings the price per unit to something maybe a little
So
lower than that?
Pallet itself, the shelters won't go down in cost, but I do believe that, being able to fit more on a piece of property, the staffing would probably remain pretty much the same. It might go up a little bit based on caseload, how much each staff member could take on for case management for all the people living there, but the unit cost would remain the same. Staffing might only slightly increase, so yes, there would be benefit.
I think Daisy, let me shed a little light on that too. I guess there are economies of scale, but my inclination is that if we were to consider this, let's walk before we start jogging. And I've looked at, we have received rather in-depth proposals for operational costs based on 25, 50, 75, and 100. I stuck to 25 just because it's got to be manageable, and if we're going to think about biting this off, it just needs to be something that we can bite off and handle.
The operational cost being half of the total is eye-opening. People are expensive. That's for sure. And I would also say to you, we do have. It's not included in this because it would be too much data. We do have a lot of data about what it would take to operate a 100-person, 100-unit pallet community. So there is more data here, not shared on this because it's kind of dense. Happy to provide it to you, though. Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would you say that the Pallet Village would be a service for transitional people who are actually looking to be reintroduced into the housing type living, and it's, as indicated, short term? May it be like 8 months or whatever it takes to get them through all the different situations that they have encountered in their life with the resources from the mental health organization and stuff. So it's kind of setting them up for training for success.
Exactly.
As when they move into it.
Yeah. So the supportive piece to this is that we'd have Lakes Region Mental Health Center, Navigating Recovery, Community Action Program, their coordinated entry housing, the police department, the fire department, Partnership for Public Health. All of these organizations are going to come together and help set these people up for what it would be like to live in their own permanent housing, whether it be an apartment or a house, So I think the mayor touched on this earlier, is that it's very difficult to go from tent to apartment without any transition, without services in place, learning what it is to cook for yourself every day and to do your laundry and to clean an apartment, and to not have all of your friends move in with you. And so the pallet community is basically, training wheels for someone to go from unsheltered, couch surfing, sleeping in their car, sleeping in a tent, to having their own apartment. It is that supportive in between.
Yeah, and just to simplify it even more, we have discussed that anybody that is in that's how it will be. They'll be referred is through one of those social service agencies, and that individual will be stable within their transitional right, movement to this type of housing. So the social service agency will sign off on it. They will be the ones that say, hey, look, this person is in a good place. They've been doing well for a period of time. They are stable enough to take this step into this housing continuum.
A follow-up, please. Would you say that in such a situation where the village is laid out, that it would be secured from the outside in and from the inside out? So that people's comforts on the outside is taken care of, and the security of the people on the inside are also taken care of?
This is going to be a residential community, and that if you don't live in this community, you can't enter. So you have to have a pallet shelter that is your own in order to have access. We do envision it having, a fenced-in area so it can be private for themselves and safe and secure. Security is it's a big component for us, for the individuals who live there, and for Pallet, the company. They are the ones who require 24/7 security and want it to be fenced in. And we agree with that, approach to it, so.
Another follow-up, please. Would you say that on this village site that would be facilities for them to bathe and personal hygiene and stuff, along with a place for them to have a community eating place, and that also they would be able to have a place to wash their clothes and stuff, so they would feel like they're getting their self-worth back?
Yes, so the cost estimate that we have does include a community space for shared meals, for community events, for office space for the social service organizations that'll be providing the services, and for bathrooms. I don't believe we included laundry because there is Isaiah's Cafe. People can do one load a day there for free, and we can do gift cards to laundromats. Because it did just increase the cost. A laundry facility was much more expensive than the rest of the units.
One more follow-up, please. Thank you. And would you say that, unlike some of the philosophies Isaiah House has, that those types of philosophies would not be encouraged in a village like this, if one can understand what I'm asking?
Yes, I do. So this will be low barrier in that we will not require someone is already in recovery for either mental health or substance use prior to moving in. Our goal is to quickly get them into recovery. With any illness that anybody experiences, whether it be heart disease or diabetes or substance use, it's very hard to manage that illness well when you live in a tent. And so we expect that once someone is sheltered and has security and can lock their belongings and take a shower on a daily basis, that health and wellness will come along with that. So it won't be a prerequisite for moving in, but we do expect that people will become well after spending some time there. But no use will be allowed on site, and that will be a quick way to get evicted is to use or deal substances on site.
And one last one. And would you say that the people who reside in this village will be required to abide by the laws?
Oh, yes.
The city
Yes.
and
It's still part of the
ordinances
city.
and stuff?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not a renegade nation.
We're not going to secede from Laconia.
I'm glad we confirmed that. We're all on the same page.
Get our
on
own
that.
mayor.
Tony, did you have a question?
Yeah,
You go ahead.
as some of you know, and I know Officer Adams knows, I've done a lot of research into the pallet communities and pallet homes, especially in Burlington, Vermont. I'm 100% in favor if we can find the funding.
Go ahead, Eric.
So there's a few of these communities existing, right? Do we have an idea what the average lifespan of one of these pallet houses is and how often these communities are having to replace them?
Yeah, so actually by dragging our feet a little bit and not getting the funding yet, we timed it just right. They now have new units which are better for cold weather and last up to 20 years. Previously, the version they had was good for 10 years, but not as acclimatized to New Hampshire winters. But now the new versions that they have go for about 20 years.
Gotcha,
So
thank you.
it's a good investment for,
And they stand up quickly, don't they? It's like an hour and a half per unit to just
Yeah.
take it from
again,
flat
once
to
the
stand-
site work is done.
Oh, yeah, right. Go ahead, Councilor Suso.
I have two questions. One is, what's the average cycle that there's a resident between entering and going off to some other, the next step in the process?
Yeah, so it can vary. The way that we're looking at it is upwards of 18 months would be the longest that they would stay. So the hope and the plan, right, based on their case management and how soon, plus it also is, can we find stable housing for them, right, at that next step? And so as long as that happens, and we can keep working with even landlords that are willing to, you know, take that chance, and there are many in the city, they will be more apt to take that chance if they see that this individual is progressing well, right, through this palette. You got to look at it as they are going to be overseen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And by having an individual that has that form of constant and structure, they succeed, right? So, especially if they're used to living in chaos. And so, for the ones that want to make something, right? Because we want to understand that you can't force someone to do something. So, if we can get that individual who is willing to do this, right, and to better themselves and to work on themselves, they can progress through that fairly quickly, right? So between 6 months, 18 months, in that time frame.
And then secondly, I think it's a great idea, but I just want to know, have you proposed this or you talked to anybody? Because I see the homeless problem is not just a city problem, it's a county problem.
Yep.
Okay? And, you know, it's been a discussion about talking to the county because the city has limited land use. Okay? And maybe some of our surrounding towns. I mean, if we build this, we're going to become a magnet. And, you know, does your group talk with the county and some of the other towns other than just always dependent? Nothing to get, I'm not saying the city, but people are gonna ask those questions.
Yeah. You know, I completely understand what you're saying. The difference on the attractiveness of it, right, is that the social service agencies that are already working with the pallet community is where those referrals are gonna come from. So an individual can't just walk into the pallet community and say, hey, I'm here, I wanna,
No,
you know.
that's not my question, is the location of the pallet community, okay? I mean, that's why I'm talking about the county, okay? Because if you look at the county as a whole, instead of just the city, you might have more options where to place that maybe in a better way.
Yes.
I think one thing that's very important to keep in mind is that all of these folks will be having to walk to their services, walk to get groceries, walk, you know, so everything has to be accessible by foot or bicycle. So although there might be more land in Belmont or Guilford, we don't have the budget to do transportation back and forth every day for individual appointments. And so they're already in the city for services. They're already living in encampments in the city zone. And so we think it's best if we keep this easily accessible location for folks without having transportation options for everybody.
Oh, the mayor has stepped out, yes.
Just to add to that, your question was, is the county kind of working on this? I would like to point out that, as far as I know, the chair of the county commission is also part of the task force.
Oh, yeah.
So they are
At the table.
aware of everything going on.
I just hear the stories about the bus that runs from Manchester to Concord to Isaiah. And there's more homeless coming here being sent here by other cities and towns. And you understand, I mean, you hear these things, I mean.
Yeah, so, and it's a rumor, and that's what it is, it's a rumor. I mean, and I think, I've addressed this multiple times. It does not happen, right? Are there individuals that are getting a ride up here every now and then? Yes, I don't doubt it one bit. And we do have people that are from other parts of the state. No question about it. Are they coming in busloads and droves? Absolutely not. That's a positive fact. Absolutely not. The bus that you see is the Mid-State Transit. That has a route here, and it stays here in this area, in the Lakes Region area. And so the CAT comes up here once in a while. That does go to Isaiah's every once in a while, and that is to pick individuals up at Isaiah's, bring them down to Concord for doctor's appointments, and then bring them back.
The reason I say that
Yep.
is because there was something that brought up here to the council recently where a new bus service from
That's-
Manchester, Concord,
Yep.
up through Pennacook and all the way through is putting that in place.
Yep.
That's the reason I was just wanting
Yeah,
to
and
confirm
the
that.
whole premise behind that is to help people get to their doctor's appointments and employment.
Yep.
That's what that's for.
You could say yes, Tony, I don't believe you anyhow.
Go right ahead.
So would each one of these have like a mailing address? Like someone would have a permanent address if they were staying in one of these?
Yes, that's one of the benefits to having a Pallet Village or a Pallet Community, is that it's a fixed address for folks to use when applying for jobs, receiving benefits, getting things like IDs, social security cards, birth certificates. Yeah.
And by keeping them stable, they can take showers there. They get their clothes, they don't have to worry about their stuff being stolen, and they can go downtown and work. So, that's an
Does the operational cost include Wi-Fi?
I'm gonna be honest, we hadn't thought of that, but, yeah.
Yeah, so we haven't
I
thought
don't know
about
if-
that.
Yeah, I didn't see it as a line item on
Nope,
that one.
nope, good call.
I see there's been a site that's already been picked.
Well, there's a site, I don't know if we've picked it, we've just used that as a potential site, which comes with its own challenges, but I think we've got 1A, 1B, 1C.
Okay.
If we were to look at that, this site seems, always appealed to me, that being the New England Yard. It creates another problem, what do you do with the stuff that's been dumped at the New England Yard?
That's the reason I asked, that's the number one reason I asked.
But I think it's always struck me as a piece of property that goes to waste, quite frankly. Not to say that DPW doesn't need space to put some of their things, but it seems to me that we could find a better use for that property, whether it's this or something else. Just seems like, and it's also a couple of reasons I like it. It's not in a settled neighborhood, which we run into problems, right? There is access to the WOW Trail, which does allow people to go to Isaiah or head out towards the hospital or wherever they need to go or work. And there's also an opportunity, and included in this estimate, that creating a buffer around it, so you may not even know that it's there, right? And creating some security. So it's
I was just trying to ask the questions I know will be
good
asked.
question. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, that's.
And I certainly want to give you all everything you need to think about this. And
When Pallet offered to design a layout for us, they asked us if we had a parcel in mind, and so that one was selected for just an initial design layout, so we can see what it would look like from their standpoint.
No other cities or areas in the state would be the first?
We would be the first, yeah.
Any idea if any of the other cities in the state, like Manchester, Concord, Dover, have looked at this?
They've asked me to report back once we've gotten it off the ground, and because they're very interested, but we already have the community collaboration sitting at the table. We've already signed off saying, yes, we support each other. Other cities don't have that.
And that's what I was gonna say, to your point, was we already have the organizations that if this occurs, that we're gonna be working there, so Wi-Fi has to be a part of what we do, and, you know, having access to computers, helping people build their resumes, applying
Exactly.
for
Yep.
things that they need to apply for, so that is a piece of it, and I think that the organizations that are part of this and are supporting that could, if it's not in the cost budget, we would work together to make sure that that happens.
It's almost as important as electricity to get someone back on their
Nowadays,
feet
yeah.
and
Yeah.
integrated, right?
And what we do, we all have to
Yeah.
use it as well, so, yeah.
Maybe we could give up the air conditioning to get Wi-Fi. I haven't got air conditioning.
I don't either.
Well, we can move into the village together.
There you go.
Okay. Any follow-up questions for, go right ahead.
Just for the sake of disclosure, I would like to say as a state rep, I am also part of the mayor's housing program here also, so I didn't want anybody to think or find out after the fact, but I'm a state rep on that board, so just to make disclosure.
And Eric and I both have the privilege of serving on the statewide Housing Stability Governor's Council, working on this. And I can say, I'm partial, of course, but, you know, what we have going on as far as our ability to work with each other and have productive conversations here in the city of Laconia is distinctly different than it is in a number of other cities throughout this state. So gives us a fighting chance, more than a fighting chance to take on some of these challenges, so. Anyway, thank you very much for your presentation and your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on agenda item 8.
We're almost on the first page.
Mr. Mayor, I mean,
If anyone needs a break of any sort, please, if a couple people need a break at some point here, I'm not averse to it, or nonetheless. Item number 8A, which is the request to establish rental fees for Boardwalk and Weirs Boulevard vending spaces for Laconia Motorcycle Week 2024. Kirk, would you like to walk us through that a bit?
Yeah, each year, you guys, that's why it's a consent and action item. You guys just approve the fees for the spots that the city owns on the boardwalk and on the boulevard, and they haven't changed. We didn't change them this year, so we're just looking for you to approve these, and we'll move on for that work that Nancy does in setting up these vendors.
Okay. So, right now, I'm looking for a motion to move to approve rental fees for Laconia Motorcycle Week 2024 vending spaces located on Boardwalk, Weirs Boulevard, as presented before you. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Bogert. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Agenda item 9, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak to a matter that's not on tonight's agenda, please step forward. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Patrick Wood, Chairman of the Human Relations Committee. I just want to say thank you. We received the grant from the New Hampshire Endowment for Health to start our program for actually the next 2 years, so there will be more on that as we proceed to set that up. But I want to thank you for your support in that, and we're going to have some fun going forward.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to make comments for matters not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll move right along to agenda item number 13. Our public hearings under agenda item number 13A. The public hearing on ordinance 2024-150-3, restrictions on display of permissible fireworks. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the January 6th, 2024 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, the Laconia Parks and Recreation Community Center, offices of the SAU, and the Laconia Public Library. I'd like to open up this public hearing at 8:52 p.m., and if anyone would like to speak to it, now would be the appropriate time. Well, welcome.
Good evening, thank you.
Nice to have you.
I just.
What was your name?
Oh, of course.
Sorry.
Thank you, Counselor. For those that don't know, it's Charlie St. Clair, Ward 3. Reading this change here, and just clarification. So you're allowing fireworks New Year's Eve, I guess the 4th of July, July 3rd, up until, it says July 3rd on here, up until 10 PM? That's what it says. Am I reading that wrong?
Oh, that's correct.
So,
We already have July 3rd on there. This adds
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
So New Year's Eve, you think that people are gonna do fireworks up until 10 PM and nothing between 10 PM and midnight and probably on? Because if you think that, that's not real. And you're asking again for people to call the police department and complain about fireworks, according to the city law, on New Year's Eve at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, God forbid, 5 minutes to 12, the countdown. That's just not logical. So I would encourage you to please revisit this ordinance to clean it up so that you're not putting a strain on the police department with unnecessary calls that they will not be able to enforce because it happens all around the city. So I would encourage you to, again, I hate to do this, but to make that correction.
Thank you, Charlie. I think you raised an excellent point.
I couldn't hear you, but,
I think you raised an excellent point.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak to this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'd like to close the public hearing at 8:55 PM. Under agenda item number 13B, public hearing for resolution 2024-01, elderly exemptions. Notice of this public hearing is made available in the January 6, 2024 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Parks and Recreation Community Center, offices of the SAU, and Laconia Public Library. I'd like to open the public hearing at 8:55 PM. If anyone would like to speak to this matter, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing no one, I'd like to close the public hearing at 8:56 PM. I will forsake my mayor's report tonight, which is rather lengthy, because I see some people still sitting here. I don't want to punish them with that. I will look to counselors, though, for council comments. Council comments. Counselor Cheney, I'd like to start with you.
I've already had a couple of discussions with the manager. The one I would point out to the balance of the council is I made the mistake of going through our ordinances and found that we're supposed to have an annual review of the impact fees by the planning board and approval by the council. I don't think we've had one since I've been here, so the manager and I have agreed he'll discuss it with the planning director.
Terrific.
See if we can get that off.
Very good.
That's it for me.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Any other council comments this evening?
Mr.
Councilor Bogan.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a bill that's coming up to be voted on that could have some differences of opinion on how we work with, like, NHMA and stuff. We use them as resources from the city standpoint to help understand training and stuff, but they also provide lobbying for the different municipalities or for different legislations, may it be for or against different legislations and stuff that could positively or negatively affect the cities for which that the legislation could cover. So this bill basically says in section 2, no public funds shall be used to lobby, attempt to influence legislation, participate in political activities, and contribute funds to any entity for the purpose of engaging in the same. So what's that saying is that the association fees that we pay to be members of these associations as a city, that they would not be able to use any of that money to lobby. So it would be separated out, from my understanding, that if they were gonna lobby, we would have to pay, or they would have to set up separate accounts or stuff. I'm unclear, but my thoughts on this is that these types of organizations like NHMA have done a positive work towards the cities and municipalities and stuff that they've helped to support, to train, and they take input on whether to lobby for or against it. They do the research. When a question comes up, you can ask them, and they research on behalf of the city or behalf of the requester and stuff. So I'm just curious, as I'm going to put my other hat on for a moment as a state rep, because it's going to come before us to vote, and I'm curious if the city itself has, as a council, has a position on its thought on NHMA and their lobbying on behalf of the different municipalities and stuff. Should we support a bill like this, or should we not support a bill like that, is basically what I'm.
Kirk, I'll look to you. You're obviously relatively new in this position. You have any interaction with New Hampshire Municipal Association?
A few times a week, at the least amount, a few times a week, if not, 3 or 4 times a week.
Are they soliciting you, or are you soliciting them?
They organize, the biggest thing that they probably do this time of year is organize all the bills and all the legislative stuff that's out there, so we can understand what's going on and be able to bring back to our boards and commissions and stakeholders what's going on in the state. That's a big part of what they do. Certainly something that individual cities and town managers and city managers could never begin to do that type of work and do anything else. So that's a big part of what they do. They, as far as they do other stuff, but as far as the lobbying side of what this has affected, and this, just to throw out, it does affect more than just NHMA. Certainly any of the organizations, if we fund, if we pay for an association fee for a fire chief, police chief, and that other organization at the state hires a lobbyist, that would affect this as well. And, I know that, I just pick on those 2 chiefs because I know that they use their statewide associations a lot. I'm sure the Clerks Association does the same.
It was just a discussion last week at a meeting,
And you're a member of the Clerks Association?
the Tax Collectors Association.
Right, yeah. I've known New Hampshire Municipal Association for a decade or more, and I've always thought of them as, and I'm suspicious of lobbyists, believe me. But I think they,
So are we.
lobbyists, lawyers, and used car salesmen, I hate to trifecta.
I'm not sure which one's the lowest.
Oh, I'm going down the food, believe me. They are an extraordinary organization, and what I like about them, it's, they're policy-driven, policy-oriented. If you want to know how a bill is going to impact a municipality, how essentially state costs are going to be ratcheted down onto municipalities, New Hampshire Municipal Association is the group that you can rely on to tell it to you straight and the impact it's going to have on a community. I don't vote on this, but I would tend to believe that it's a darn good organization. I'd like to think that bill is DOA, but I don't know. But I would encourage, if I were to encourage anybody and lobby them, I would say to you, I think we get far more from the Municipal Association, the Tax Collectors Association, the Chiefs Association, than, we get a lot from them. And I think what we get from them inures to the benefit of the people we represent.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, you may, yeah, sure.
What was the reason behind the bill? Did you put it together? or-
Lunacy.
No, I did not put it together. I'm not a co-sponsor of the bill or any way, shape, or form.
I'm just wondering,
It's-
that's all.
it's-
Why?
Thank you.
why did it